Well, all you beautiful people. So welcome back to another episode of Powerlifter to Bodybuilder. So we're here again with another leg day. So today is my heavy deadlift day, and I'm starting the session off with something very important. I'm writing out what I'm about to do into my logbook. So I am a big fan of using the logbook, right? Just pen and paper, just writing down sets, reps, load that I'm going to attack for that day. I think most people should be using logbook to track their reps and sets and weight and load every single week. Definitely when I started incorporating it, it coincides with when my training started to take off and I started to get really big and strong. So definitely if you are not using logbook and tracking your weights, this is your calling to start doing it right now. So starting off my session with my warm-up. This is exactly how I warm up for deadlifts. I don't do anything else prior to this. I just grab the bar, do some hip hinges, and then get into my regular deadlift stance. So start off with some RDLs, then into some just regular empty bar deadlifts. Moving that empty bar as if I do have a load in the bar. And then the only thing that will hopefully change as I get to my working weight is going to be the speed at which that bar moves and the load on that bar. So once I have a few reps of that done, just enough to kind of grease the groove and feel like I'm ready to kind of load the bar, I'll throw on my first working set. So I'll try to get to my top set or my first working set in about 3 to 4 warm-ups from when I start loading the bar, of course. So this is 70. So first warm-up I'll do from anywhere between 8 to 10 reps until I just kind of feel somewhat ready. And then as I start to load up that bar, I will start to have the weight increase, but the load increase, but the reps start to decrease, mainly to try to conserve energy, right? Because like at the end, they're not meant to be fatiguing. They're just meant to be priming my nervous system, all right? That's the main kind of point of the warm. Raise your heart rate, activate any muscles involved, mobilize any joints you're going to use, potentiate the nervous system, right? Don't want to go in and go from empty bar to your top set. It's not going to turn out too well. So that's why I have a gradual increase of load. The best lifters in the world, they will take this approach too. They'll start off with lightweight and gradually ramp up the intensity till they get to their top weight. And the actual scale of those weights is really going to depend on the strength of the lifter. So I've heard that Dan Bell, who's one of the strongest powerlifters in the world, he will go to 225 straight away for his first set of squats. Or he'll go from like bar or 70 to 225, something ridiculous, which is an insane jump in weight when you think about it. But that guy squats like 500 kilos, yeah? So this is my last warm-up set. So once I get to my last warm-up set, it's just for a single, okay? And by this stage, I'll have my belt on. So you can see there, nice and easy. So on the menu today is heavy deadlift. So just my regular conventional deadlift. Somehow, don't ask how, but my strength is doing quite well. Now, look, I've mentioned this a few times, but I'm pretty sure I'm lifting on fake plates, right? Because like I'm 82 kilos at the moment, and my first working set here is 230 for 5. So this is actually my last leg session like this in this gym, because I'm going to be going back to Ireland now next week. So I decided to go a little bit harder today on these plates, because I know once I get back to abs, I'm going to be humbled as fuck by the calibrated plates. Lifting on this bar, lifting on these plates, it genuinely feels maybe 10-15 kilos lighter than it does on the steel plates. Like the bar is way more forgiving in terms of like if you don't pull the slack properly with this bar, it doesn't really kind of punish you too much, versus if I forget to pull the slack with a power bar like an Alico, I get pulled forward so much and I end up just having my hip shift up really high and then pretty much finishing the entire lift with my lower back, whereas like it's a little more forgiving with this bar here. This is my second set, so this is 235 for 5, so just a 5 kilo increase. So keeping with that pyramid style approach that I've been using for pretty much since I started prep. So decent enough set here. A little bit of background towards the last rep, nothing nothing to be worried about, to be honest. A little bit of back flexion is nothing to be worried about, really. Once you are trying to maintain your kind of form throughout the lift, and like, you know, you're not having like excessive like, you know, rounding. If you start to see that like your lower back is rounding a huge amount from first rep to last rep, then it's a bit of an issue, because obviously one of the kind of main ways that people will injure themselves is their tissues are not ready for the load that they're being exposed to. So if you are going from first rep, like, you know, perfect form, last rep, like absolute dog taking a dump, it's a good chance that the position you're in towards the end is a position where those muscles being exposed to the higher forces are weaker. So this was my last set, I believe, 240 for 5, absolute win. I'm very happy with this set, not gonna lie, pretty pumped. So again, maintained composure throughout the set, took a little bit of a reset here to kind of catch my breath, catch my brace, and finish off. Bar getting a little bit stuck on my thighs there, so I have to fight for that lockout. Now I am on to belt squats, so I've got 4 sets of 6 to 10 here. So you will just notice that I have set up 2 plates as well, and this is essentially just to allow me to get a little bit more depth. So if you are operating on like machines and stuff where you're just not able to get a sufficient range of motion, it's no harm to kind of get a little bit creative to kind of set it up for yourself. So one thing I see here is what, like leg presses, for example. Some people would be performing a leg press, and you know, when they are getting down to the bottom end range of motion for the actual machine, they still have a lot more range of motion left in the likes of like their quads or hips. But using something like a plate behind your back, that is going to like essentially increase the range of motion that you're going to be able to be exposed to. So what I'm doing here is I have those 2 plates set up underneath my feet, because no matter what setting I have that actual input on, once I get down to the bottom, I got down to a sufficient level of depth, even the actual machine will touch off the ground, which, you know, it's kind of provide a dead stop there at the ground, which I don't want. I want to have a decent amount of tension in that bottom position, because that's when my quads and my glutes are going to be quite lengthened. So maintaining tension in that bottom position is kind of what I want. I don't want the tension to drop off by having the actual kind of machine hit off the ground, right? So one thing I'm actually quite looking forward to is, like, I am looking forward to leaving this gym, because with the leg press here, like, even if I try to adjust it, I just don't really kind of fit into it too well. It's one of the axis leg presses, so, and the foot plate does not move. It doesn't have any kind of 4-bar linkage or anything like that. So to get into it, I have to have a huge amount of dorsiflexion to actually get into the machine, which I just don't have. My ankles are just not that mobile. So, and then that's the only leg press they have in this gym. So I've been kind of essentially forced to use this, and like, while I do actually enjoy this movement here itself, like, you can just see like the amount of kind of load I'm having to use. I don't really know how good the actual stimulus I'm really getting here either is. Like definitely towards like the latter few reps, like the reps are quite challenging, but I would probably prefer something a little bit more stable, like a leg press going forward. And I know in Coliseum they do have a nice Watson one, which I can also use quite well unilaterally. Generally, I find performing leg press unilaterally, I kind of get a little bit more out of the movement. Sometimes when you're performing a leg press with 2 legs, well, especially for myself, just get carried away with a little bit of, or I get carried away with the loading, right? And as well, anytime I've had any kind of lower back issues, it's actually come from leg pressing and potentially, like, you know, getting a little bit sloppy with my brace, let my lower back come up off the pad. Whereas when I'm doing it unilaterally, obviously, number 1, can't use too much load, and then number 2, you're in a better position to not have your kind of lower back flex as much. And just through those kind of reasons, I think they're a better option for me to not have any kind of lower back strains pop up, and that's definitely what I don't want to happen during this stage of prep. So after my belt squats, I'm on to the seated hamstring curl. So thank you very much to, I believe it was Lizo, who commented on the last video and kind of corrected me in regards to the seated hamstring curl and lion hamstring curl. So he correctly pointed out that the line hamstring curl targets your sartorius more than the other heads of the hamstrings, and the seated hamstring curl is going to target the majority of the heads of the hamstrings better, because you're in that kind of greater stretch here. So with my hip flexed here, I'm going to be getting greater stretch in the hamstrings, versus with a less flexed hip in the line hamstring curl, I'm not going to be getting as much of a stimulation to all the other hamstring heads. I will get probably a little bit more bicep femoris in the line hamstring curl, but purely because that's like the main kind of like knee flexor. But the rest of the hamstring heads, you're kind of going to get a lot more kind of length into through flexing at the hip and performing a seated hamstring curl. As well as the challenge in a seated hamstring curl is generally greatest in the mid to lengthen range versus in the short. So when you're at that kind of position with your legs out straight. So after the hamstring curl then is into some leg extensions. So you may have noticed from the last 2 leg days, I have I've got leg extension in both of the days, but I've got the rep range varied enough. Like I'm doing 8 to 12 one day, I'm doing 6 to 10 this day, and that's really the extent of the variation you really need. Like it's the extent of variation that I need anyway. I generally don't mind doing similar exercises multiple times a week, just with different rep ranges. It suits me down to the ground. I'm targeting all the muscle groups that I really need to be targeting anyway, so this kind of suits my preference, and it just means that as well that I don't have to have a list of 50 different exercises that I need to be really skilled in. I just need to be skilled in a handful of them. Then finally, I have 5 sets of calves. So just performing this on a slightly different machine to the Life Fitness one that I was using the other day. Again, contrary to what I just said there, the main reason I'm doing that is just for a small bit of variety. So I kind of bounce between the two of these. This one I can actually get a good deal more of a bent knee. So again, potentially getting a little bit more kind of length in through the gastrocnemius. As well with this one, the actual kind of foot plate here, as you can see, obviously it's quite large compared to Life Fitness foot plate, which is quite narrow, and it just feels a little bit nicer when I'm actually doing the actual calf raised portion of the lift. And then that's pretty much it. So that's this leg session complete. I hope this video was somewhat useful. I hope you found my rant somewhat useful. The next video I am going to be doing, I've got 2 high days over the next 2 days, so I'm going to be recording my kind of eating schedule and the foods I will be eating, and I'll be also showing some posing from me going from flat to full, because we still haven't decided on the actual approach that we'll take leading into peak week. So that's going to be the next video. So I'll leave it here. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll chat to you in the next one.